everyone. So it is March in Alaska, and I was going to share with you. So gardening in a lot of states has already started in the ground and maybe starting seeds and whatever. A lot of the people who I watch on YouTube, they're out there planting. In Alaska, we're not outside planting yet. There's still a lot of snow. I'll show you that here in just a second. But gardening still starts in Alaska fairly early on. As early as January, depending on what you want to plant and how you want to plant it. Like onions, if you want to plant from seed, have to be started in January, things like that. A lot of stuff I grow doesn't really have to be planted until March, and it's March. So I was going to just share with you some of the things that I use and how I grow my starts, because it's cheaper to start them myself than it is to go to the greenhouse, even though I do that as well, because sometimes maybe my starts don't work like I think they should or whatever. So one thing you're going to need is trays, and I forgot to bring over my little seed starter things. I use a bowl and just some seed starter mix. One thing I've used in the past, I don't use very often, is those little Jiffy cups. One thing I learned about those is they suck the moisture out of the soil so that they can be hydrated. And so your plants, you have to keep them really, really wet, but that also promotes disease. And so you don't want to they're just not very good. Plus, our soil does not get warm enough to break those down. So you either have to peel them off when you go to plant your transplants, and all the little tiny roots are attached to those cups. So when you peel them off, you damage the root system a little bit. Some plants it doesn't matter, other plants it really does. So I wouldn't recommend the little Jiffy cups for Alaska. Other places, I have no idea. They probably work fine, but not here. So I'm going to show you kind of my setup, and then I'll just plan a few things. I'll show you the calendar, kind of how things go in the ground. This was developed by a different lady. I'll tell you who that was as well. Anyway, I got to adjust my camera a bit. I'll show you. Hold on. Okay, before I show you planting, so that little square or rectangle, I guess, out there is my garden. That's where my above ground stuff goes. The stuff that I don't want to, that one right there. The stuff that I don't want, like the moose and the rabbits in, so like broccoli and peas and lettuces and spinach. And then this is the rest of my garden. My son's been out snow machining across it a few times. Those fence posts, well, the actual fence is 4 feet tall. So we have about 3.5 feet of snow, standing snow. We've had, I don't even know how much, 10 or 12 feet of snow, but it packs as it goes along. We've had a lot slide off of our roofs. Anyway, so this is not real garden conducive right now, but we can grow a lot of stuff in our house to begin with. Okay, so I've already started. Let me get that down farther. I've already started Brussels sprouts here. Sorry, let me move over. Brussels sprouts here, and these are peppers. These had to be started in February. The Brussels sprouts, I wasn't totally set up with my lights when I started these, and I'll show you that setup here in just a minute. So they sprouted really fast, and when here in Alaska we don't get enough sunlight to keep these little and keep them growing slowly. They try to reach for the light too fast, and then they get tall and spindly, and they're not as hardy, I guess you could say. I mean, it works still. I've done it for many years, but the lights help keep the plants from growing too tall too fast and getting spindly like this. But my Brussels sprouts are like that, so it is what it is. If you look really closely, you can see the peppers are just starting to sprout. One thing, I plant 2 seeds in every one of these little trays. There was 2 in the Brussels sprouts, and then I pull out the thinner one, I guess, or the smaller one, so that the other one has a chance. But that way, if one of the seeds doesn't germinate for some reason, then I'll have, twice as much chance for them to germinate. Okay, so let me show you this list. First, I want to show you the name, Deb Blaylock. Alaska Master Gardener, Palmer, Alaska, and she developed this list in January 2022. It's a really nice list, and right now we're in early to mid-March, and I'm going to plant my mid-March tomatoes because I will not be here in the middle of March. I'll be in Utah. So I'm going to plant those. They're right there. And then when I come back from Utah, I will plant the broccoli and I don't usually do cauliflower, but cabbage. And I think that's probably it for March. April will be, I usually don't plant my kale beforehand. I usually plant that in the garden as well as my lettuce. So I'm not going to worry about those two things. Late April, the zucchini, the winter squash, I'll plant those in these little pots. And then May, we direct sow the rest of our stuff, our carrots, potatoes, lettuce, spinach, zucchinis. I've transplanted those. Anyway, so I'm going to just plant a couple things, my tomatoes, and then we'll continue on. Let me get my camera turned around. Okay, so I have my bowl. This is what I've been using. I have my soil, and I'm just going to pour my soil into my bowl. I don't need a ton, I guess. I probably have too much, but I can use it another day. And then I'm going to just get it wet so that it's really moist. Okay, so one note, I bought Denali seeds. Sorry, you can't see that. Because they're made for my area. So Alaska, I'm in the zone, I think it's 2, 3, something like that. And so a lot of the stuff actually is not supposed to grow here, but they've got some hybrids that grow really well. My husband says I am getting a greenhouse this year, so that's what I'm planning today is tomatoes. There's 2 varieties, and excuse me. And so I'm going to plant 6, so 1 tray each of the 2 varieties. So this one is called Polar Beauty, and this one is called Astupus, I think is how you say that. Anyway, so I'm going to plant 6 of each. And as you can see, I really did get way too much dirt. All right, so. And like I said, I'm going to do actually 12, 12 in each, because I want them just in case something doesn't work. Just one thing to note. So I know I'm facing the wrong direction. The light's coming in the window, but I only fill these halfway, and that's so that when the plant starts growing, I can add more soil, because the tomatoes, you kind of bury them a little bit deeper, and that gives them a stronger root base. And so I'm going to add more soil here after they get a little bit bigger in these pots. And then I just save the rest of them, obviously, for maybe another year. Once they get too old, I just go buy new ones. But I'll keep these for a couple of years anyway and keep trying with these. So then this goes in my tray. Alright, so there's my trays, and I'm going to just mark this. So I got a little tag like that one. So we're going to just mark these tomatoes, and we'll just remember that whole row is tomatoes. And then I'll show you my setup under the light. Okay, so this is in my dining room. There's lots of stuff on it, so ignore the mess. This is my business stuff and whatnot. But anyway, set up the second shelf. Ignore the rabbit in the background as well. That was for something else. This light here, and then it just plugs in here. It goes over my vegetables, and it's fairly low down. I might even lower it. I haven't decided, but anyway, you want it fairly low down so that the plants get enough light. And this is a daylight bulb in it. I know you can use just regular fluorescent bulbs, but this one was actually pretty cheap. I bought it at Walmart for, I think, $11.99 for the light itself, and it already had the 2 bulbs in it. So I felt like that was a pretty good deal. Like I said, those Brussels sprouts, they sprouted a little too fast, but the peppers are starting to come up. And now the tomatoes, hopefully in probably a week and a half or so, I'll be gone when they actually come up probably, but hopefully my boys will remember to plug my light in. These last ones, we'll do at least 12 plants of broccoli, at least 12 plants of cabbage, and then I'll do some cucumbers later. And some zucchini, so different kinds of zucchini. I'll probably end up with one more of these trays down under here, or some short ones anyways. I got some little tiny ones. Anyway, so there is my gardening for March in Alaska. Okay, one last thing I forgot to mention. So this is in one of those trays that you get like from a greenhouse or whatever. You can buy them at Walmart or whatever. But water in the bottom of this. Again, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you don't want to water the tops of the plants because it can cause diseases. So it's better to pour the water in the bottom. Plus then the roots go down and get bigger as compared to sitting on the surface, which doesn't create a very good root system. So again, like right now, I wet everything down. So the soil is moist, but from now on, I will water, just pouring water in the bottom here to keep the soil, and it'll soak up through the soil, but to keep the soil moist so that we don't have any problems with like root rot and things like that. So just keep that in mind when you're watering. Make sure it's in a tray, some kind of tray that will hold water so that you can water from the bottom.